Yes, it will.
Yes, we can.
Louder.
Yes, we can.
Louder.
Yes, we can.
Louder.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Speaking with the hubris and complete inversion of reality that has defined his entire political career, Obama ends his time in office exactly as he started it, lying through his teeth.
I am very proud of the fact that we will, knock on wood, leave this administration without significant scandal.
But this lie about a scandal-free presidency is especially galling because it encapsulates all of the lies of the past 8 years. In reality, as even a cursory examination of the record demonstrates, the administration of President Barack Obama has been nothing but 8 years of unrelenting lies and scandals. There were the big lies.
I taught the Constitution for 10 years. I believe in the Constitution, and I will obey the Constitution of the United States. We're not going to use signing statements as a way of doing an end run around Congress.
Well, that was candidate Obama then. This is President Obama now. He just issued a signing statement on Friday, attaching it to the 2011 budget bill. In fact, he has issued nearly 20 such signing statements since taking office.
There were the bigger lies.
When there's a bill that ends up on my desk as president, you, the public, will have 5 days to look online and find out what's in it before I sign it, so that you know what your government's doing.
Speaker, in order to try to figure out what we're doing, how much damage to the country, I tried to get a copy of the bill. We have out here on the table 2454 that has 1,090 pages in it, but I've understood since debate in here that there's another 300 pages that were added in the middle of the night. My inquiry is, how do I get a copy of the other 300 pages that people on here or here on the floor hadn't had a chance to read or see?
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it away from the fog of the controversy.
There were the brazen lies.
You can keep your plan if you are satisfied with it. If you like the plan you have, you can keep it. If you like your plan and you like your doctor, you won't have to do a thing. You keep your plan. If you like your health care plan, you'll be able to keep your health care plan. If you've got health insurance, you can keep it.
But for the average person, many of folks who don't have health insurance initially, they're going to have to make some choices, and they might end up having to switch doctors.
The lies from his first months in office.
But if you are ready for change, then we can go ahead and tell the lobbyists their days of setting the agenda in Washington are over. They have not funded my campaign, they will not run my White House, and they will not drown out the voices of the American people when I'm president of the United States of America.
Just this weekend, the New York Times published a list of names, a rather long list of names of people who are working on Obama's transition team or who have accepted jobs in his White House, who are either former lobbyists or who have close ties to lobbyists.
The lies from his first day in office.
Let me say it as simply as I can. Transparency and the rule of law will be the touchstones of this presidency. This is the most transparent administration in history.
Originally scheduled to be bestowed on the president in a publicly scheduled ceremony at the White House during Sunshine Week, that ceremony was canceled at the last moment, and the award, supposedly a token of praise for Obama's stated commitment to government openness, was itself bestowed on the president in a secret, off-the-record meeting to which the press was not invited.
One of the other things we discovered on this Sunshine Week, in addition to not only are they exempting themselves from FOIA requests, but the Obama administration sets even a new record for denying and censoring government files.
And the lies from before he was even in office.
President, could you please react to the reports of secret government surveillance of phones and internets? And can you also assure Americans that the government, your government, doesn't have some massive secret database of all their personal online information and activities?
Yeah. When I came into this office, I made two commitments that are more important than any commitment I make. Number one, to keep the American people safe. And number two, to uphold the Constitution. I will provide our intelligence and law enforcement agencies with the tools they need to track and take out the terrorists without undermining our Constitution and our freedom. The programs that have been discussed over the last couple of days in the press are secret in the sense that they're classified, but they're not secret in the sense that when it comes to telephone calls, every member of Congress has been briefed on this program. That means no more illegal wiretapping of American citizens. What the intelligence community is doing is looking at phone numbers and durations of calls. No more national security letters to spy on citizens who are not suspected of a crime. No more tracking citizens who do nothing more than protest a misguided war. What the intelligence community is doing is looking at phone numbers and durations of calls. No more ignoring the law when it is inconvenient, but by sifting through this so-called metadata, they may identify potential leads with respect to folks who might engage in terrorism.
But despite the endless litany of broken promises that Obama has left in his wake, his most striking betrayals of the public's trust weren't lies at all. Instead, the strange mass hysteria that surrounded his ascent to the Oval Office, that hope and change delirium that swept up untold millions, caused others to project their ideas and ideals onto him. Suddenly he was being anointed as a man of peace before making a single, substantive action.
God morgen, good morning. Den norske Nobelkomité har bestemt at Nobels fredspris for 2009 skal tildeles president Barack Obama for hans ekstraordinære innsats for å styrke internasjonalt diplomati og mellomfolkelig samarbeid. The Norwegian Nobel Committee has decided that the Nobel Peace Prize for 2009 is to be awarded to President Barack Obama for his extraordinary efforts to strengthen international diplomacy and cooperation between peoples.
As farcical as that announcement seemed at the time, how much more galling does it seem now, after Peace Prize Obama has gone down in the history books as the first and only president in U.S. history to be at war every single day of his 8-year administration. Indeed, for people around the world, Obama will be defined by the wars of imperial aggression that he waged across 7 different theaters during his time in office. There was the war in Afghanistan, now the longest ever military engagement in the history of the United States. October 7th, 2016 marks the 15th anniversary of the invasion and occupation of Afghanistan by US-led NATO forces. 15 years since the bombs began raining down on the country. 15 years of drone strikes and civilian massacres, detainees and prison torture, insurgency and bombings, warlords and drug lords and CIA kickbacks. 15 years of death, 15 years of destruction. And still, like a decades-long nightmare, it continues.
I'm announcing an additional adjustment to our posture. Instead of going down to 5,500 troops by the end of this year, the United States will maintain approximately 8,400 troops in Afghanistan into next year through the end of my administration. The narrow missions assigned to our forces will not change. They remain focused on supporting Afghan forces and going after terrorists. But maintaining our forces at this specific level, based on our assessment of the security conditions and the strength of Afghan forces, will allow us to continue to provide tailored support to help Afghan forces continue to improve.
The war against Libya, undertaken without even congressional approval and waged under false pretenses.
Fox News has revealed today that a bipartisan group of lawmakers headed by Representatives Dennis Kucinich and Walter Jones will be filing a federal lawsuit against the Obama administration addressing the constitutional and legal justifications for military action in Libya. The announcement comes a day after the release of House Speaker John Boehner's publicized warning to the president in the form of a letter urging Mr. Obama to provide an explanation for the continued engagement in the region and refusal to acknowledge the congressional role in military operations.
We are staring not only into the maelstrom of war in Libya, the code of behavior we are establishing sets a precedent for the potential of ever more violent conflicts in Syria, Iran, and the specter of the horrifying chaos of generalized war throughout the Middle East. Our continued occupation of Iraq and Afghanistan makes us more vulnerable, not less vulnerable, to being engulfed in this generalized war.
The Libyan opposition and the Arab League appealed to the world to save lives in Libya. And so at my direction, America led an effort with our allies at the United Nations Security Council to pass a historic resolution that authorized a no-fly zone to stop the regime's attacks from the air and further authorized all necessary measures to protect the Libyan people.
If this compassion for the plight of men and women in Libya was so heartfelt, why is it that you have heard nothing whatsoever about Libya in the last 2 years from the same politicians and talking heads who persuaded you that dropping bombs on the country was the only way to save it? Is it because the situation was resolved with the death of Gaddafi, and the virtuous Western-backed freedom fighters have established a happy, prosperous, functioning society of peace and happiness? Of course not.
Libya is on the way to becoming a terrorist outpost for possible future attacks on Europe. The prospect has been raised by Libya's former prime minister, who came to power following the overthrow of the Gaddafi regime. He recently fled the country, where rival militias run rampant and are in de facto control of the state.
You know how I feel about President Barack Obama, that he was a huge failure. We came to a turning point in 2009, and he failed to turn. He did everything the same George Bush would have did. His economic policy was the same. He codified George Bush's tax cuts and made them permanent. George Bush couldn't do that. He continued his foreign policy debacle. Continued it. We're still in Afghanistan, 15 straight years bombing in Afghanistan. Barack Obama, hey, 5 more years, we get a gold watch. So he's doing everything horrible wrong. And he is. And by the way, we would have had Romney care whether Barack Obama was elected or not, because the insurance companies and the pharmaceutical companies wanted it. That's why we got Obamacare. That's why. And we didn't get a public option because his donors didn't want it. So, again, everything points to a big failure, Barack Obama. He had no vision, didn't know how to use the bully pulpit. He had no vision. What was his big ideas? What was his big idea after he did Romney Care? Romney Care. He didn't do single payer. He didn't do Medicare. He did Romney Care. And then he went and invaded Libya. And then he ramped up the war in Afghanistan. Then he went back into Iraq. Now we're bombed so much in Syria, we ran out of bombs. So, and by the way, Obamacare is going up 24% for everybody this year. Is their pay going up? Oh, that's right. There is no cost controls. So why do I bring up all this? Because Barack Obama puts the left to sleep to all the horrible policies that the government is implementing right now. The fact that we have no democracy, the fact that we live in an oligarchy, but even more so that we don't even have habeas corpus anymore, and that the government is now, we live in a surveillance state. Every email, every text, every phone call, the government has a record of it. That's not liberty. That's the opposite. And that's Barack Obama's doing. We don't have habeas corpus. They're torturing people who expose war crimes inside of our government. They don't prosecute the people who commit the war crimes. They prosecute the people. This is Barack Obama. They prosecute the people who expose them. So why do I bring all this up? Because hopefully now that Donnie Tynahan is president, we will stop turning our blind eye to horrible shit that Barack Obama's doing. For instance, Castro died, the leader of Cuba, and Barack Obama tweeted that out. He said, "We still have differences with the Cuban government that I will raise directly. America will always stand for human rights around the world." You run a torture facility and in their fucking country. You literally run a torture facility in their fucking country, and you got this guy's the balls on this guy because he knows the words. He doesn't know the actions. He knows the words. You really, you always stand for human rights around the world, just not in your own fucking country, you mean? Like in North Dakota, or to Occupy Wall Street, or Eric Garner, or any of the criminals on Wall Street that never got prosecuted, or the people who committed war crimes that you said we tortured some folks, but you didn't prosecute any of them. So now Donnie Tynahan's is hiring a CIA guy who says he wants to do more waterboarding because of you. Look at this. The balls of this guy. The ball, and guess what? Everybody on the left, they don't say a goddamn thing about it. They all go, I love that guy. Oh, I miss Barack Obama. Because you miss a guy who says nice things and does the opposite. That's what Barack Obama is. He says nice things. He's running a guy, like he doesn't even have the awareness of, wait a minute, we still run a torture facility in Cuba. You know why we run Guantanamo Bay? Do you know why we do that? Because the shit we're doing in Guantanamo Bay, it would be illegal if we did it inside the United States because of our Constitution. So we have to do it in someone else's country where our Constitution doesn't apply. And Barack Obama tweets that. The guy is the opposite of what you think he is. He's a tool. He is a wolf in sheep's clothing. He is the continuation of Bush's policies. Every goddamn good thing he did, we would have fucking did anyway. Oh, really, Jimmy? Really? You think that we were... Yes! He did 3 more wars. By the way, he just started bombing Somalia and Yemen. Just started... This guy's a warmonger beyond... Again, if Bush did the shit he did, people would be screaming.